Dr. Katherine Hayes. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you for coming on to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on, and it's an honor to have you on.
It's an honor to be here.
Like, if anyone had to ask me, we have a creative celebrity on the podcast today. That's what I would say. That's what I would say. An overachiever. That's what
Oh,
you are.
wow. Wow,
I
that's a lot.
mean, yeah. I mean, you have transitioned so well as an author from godly, spiritual to crime action thriller. You hold so many titles. You belong to so many cool organizations. You
Yeah.
have so many awards under your name. And, later on in the show, I want to touch on how do you actually manage it all,
Mhm.
right? Because like one component of my podcast is to educate, inspire, and motivate independent creators out there, whether you be a musician, whether you be an author. And I come across so many creators who are under
Mhm.
so much pressure, just to get their first product out to market, whether it be a book, whether it be a track. They're under so
Yeah.
much pressure, living in so much anxiety. So probably learning from your life story, your experiences, your knowledge, this will
Mhm.
sort of give them that direction. Look, chill, be cool. It's okay.
Yeah.
What you're going through at the moment is supposed to be happening to
Yeah.
you. Yeah. So, I mean, we'll jump onto that later on with our time together. But
Okay.
I mean, first up, like, I want to learn as much as I can about you in this little time that we have together. So
Mhm.
let's go back to day one, childhood, teenage years. Like, how did it all start for you?
Yeah. So one of the things that I love is that I come from tons of diversity, and my parents met in England, but my mother's background is Portuguese Jew, and then my father is, but they're both Jamaican, but my mother's roots started in Portugal, and my father is Scottish and Black, and his lineage was started by the slave trade in Jamaica. But anyway, I'm just giving you that backdrop just to display the kind of rich, diverse childhood I had in terms of food, in terms of culture, language, in terms of experience. And I came from England when I was small and came to the United States, to New York. And I grew up in New York, in the city, in Brooklyn, and later on moved out to Long Island. But since then, I branched out and I've lived in a number of states. And right now I'm in Florida. But I've always loved storytelling. Storytelling has always been a strong part of my childhood. The oral tradition is a very big thing in Jamaica. Story times was something that was really memorable with my father. He would often gather us in the evening to tell stories. He would read from a book. There's a childhood story about this spider called Brother Anansi. And I found out later that it's actually from Africa. But it was handed down in this oral tradition of these stories. My father continued and would give us these rich stories about this really smart spider. And so because of those experiences, stories just became so important to me. I've been writing stories since I was young. Never thought I would do it for a living. I always thought I did do something else. I was a principal for years. I was in education and transitioned to the
Okay.
publishing industry.
Okay, teacher in the house as well.
Yeah.
Goes back to what I said, like what I got listed is already so many titles, and now there's more to it.
Yeah.
So, like, how was it being from a diverse cultural background? Did it have its challenges as well growing up?
It had its challenges more from the outside because people always wanted to put you in a category. And my parents were not used to that. When the places where they were born and where I was born, race was not even put on your birth certificate. But when they came to the United States, race was a big thing here. And they were always having to check these boxes. They didn't understand. They were like, well, I'm this and I'm that. And how do I choose which one? And they were so excited when the other box came out, for people who are mixed up. So I have found it to be a blessing because I always feel comfortable in any setting that I'm in because my parents really taught us how to look at people from the heart from the inside, not
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
outside. It wasn't about what you look like on the outside. It was what about your heart? What about who that person is? So I guess it was quite a bit of a cultural shock for my parents, where there was so much emphasis on skin color and ethnicity when they came to the States. It is a melting pot in the States, but there are also lots of complexities where people want to know who you are, and then they want to go from there. So really the issue was more from outside than from inside. And then when we all together, we all look so different. They're all like, who are you? Where do you come from? What is your
Mm.
race? And so my parents disliked being put into one box because they just felt more akin to the Jamaican coat of arms, which is out of many, one people.
Okay. Okay. And if you look at the situation in the States, present time,
Uh,
has it been beneficial over the years? Have things changed? Or do you still encounter challenges?
Yeah, you still encounter challenges because you still feel this heightened sense of awareness regarding race. It in the United States right now, during the present times, ra- racism has unfortunately become an issue again. And I mean, it's always been there, but it's as if we're regressing and that's how it feels in my skin as a brown person. And
Mm.
I'm fortunate to have a mother-in-law who is 98. She's about to turn 99. She's
Wow.
got a better memory than me. Yeah. She lived in the deep South before the civil rights movement and during the civil rights movement. And for her to say this time in the United States feels dark, and she says it feels darker than the ugliness of the things they went through during the civil rights movement, because she said we felt hopeful. We knew that we were not going to stay where we were. We were moving to a better place and everybody wanted that. But she says now it feels like we want to go back, and it's a feeling of hopelessness.
Yeah, yeah, feel you. So, just one more question based on your past. So, what were you teaching as an educator?
As an educator, I taught art. I taught art on the side for a community of city daycares. I would do their summer programs, but traditionally I taught elementary school. I was certified as a pre-K through 6, and then later on when I moved to Arizona, that was in New York. Later on when I moved to Arizona, I was certified K through 8, and so I think I've taught just about every grade except for first grade. And with
That's
the
with the
exception
naughty
of
ones.
high school, yeah.
You avoided the naughty ones. So, after your educational career or phase in life, where did you transition next?
Yeah, so I transitioned to the publishing industry, and it was supposed to be a short trial. I had That was 17 years ago. I'd had my last baby, and my husband was deploying a lot, and we'd also adopted we had adopted my daughter's best friend in high school. So we had a house full of children. We're a blended family. We have his, mine, and ours, and we have 7 children to get all together. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, but only 4 ever lived with us. But at the time, um, the kids were really young, and my husband says, I'm going to be deploying a lot. We've got a lot going on. Why don't you take this time to explore the publishing industry? You've always wanted to write. I'd always written columns for magazines. He said, why don't you go after, completing your first book, going after your dream? And so I did that, but I mostly did it in terms of what I knew. I wrote lots of curriculum. I worked with religious programs on the military base that we moved to, and I did what I knew. And then later on, it grew into creating a Bible studies. It grew into creating devotionals, articles, and writing programs. And it just kept on building more and more until I did produce, like you shared earlier, my first thriller. I realized I really am a thriller writer. I love the thriller genre. I love to read it. I love to watch movies that are thrillers. And so that career just continued to build and build until I realized, oh, I'm working full time in the industry. I do work more
Yeah.
so in terms of what's going to pay you the most is editing. I work as a production editor. I freelance for several traditional publishers and a literary agency, and I also do lots of conferences and speaking gigs.
Okay, that's cool. So also, so I can label you as well, like ghostwriting. You also do that.
Yes, I can do. I do ghostwriting. Yes.
Yeah. Last night, I'm not sure if you know a series called Family Law.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You ever came across? Yeah, yeah. So, in South Africa at least, season 4 came out, and I was actually watching this one episode. Like, I'm intrigued about law.
Yeah.
If I decided, to go to university for years and years and years, law would have been um, the career I would have followed. So
Right.
anyway, so I was watching the series, and in there was a ghostwriter. And it was so crazy how many ghostwriters are like making an awesome living, you
Yeah.
know? Like in it. Like, I mean, you will get a book and it's published and the author's name is on it. Yet, I mean, it's the same as music. I'm fully involved in the music industry. You just never know who the songwriters are. The artist's face is there, the artist's name is there. But as you go into the credits on Spotify, you're like, oh, okay, there's like 10 songwriters that you don't even know who these people are.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so
The-
I mean that.
yeah. Ghostwriting. It's something that I would love to get more into. And actually I picked up a lot as being a journalist for writing newspaper articles and columns, because you've got to take that interview, you got to put it in that person's voice, and ghostwriting is really doing a lot of that, making sure that you tell somebody's story in their own voice. So I
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, I do that for, like, I ghostwrite like medical articles. I what a little known fact about me was I actually was a pre-med student. And there's a whole long story behind why I switched, but I do understand certain things. And so one of my favorite things to do is to take articles by doctors and just to make it understandable for the general public, because a lot of times the way they write it sounds like a foreign language to us. So I have to
It's
take
too
it
complicated.
and put it into a way where everyone can understand it, because they're
Yeah.
so smart and they think everybody's thinking like them, and no.
But I mean, just like in law, legal jargon, people
Yeah,
get so scared when they get like a letter from an attorney because they don't understand the language. You get me?
right,
And that's why lawyers get paid a lot,
right, yeah, yeah,
to decipher something that is so simple, once it's actually done. Oh, okay,
yeah,
that's what that meant. All right, I
yeah,
understand now. Yeah.
right,
But I mean, for myself personally, like these days, you can self educate yourself on any topic, online
yeah,
if you know where to look. And
mhm,
I mean, nowadays, if you get hit with like an article that is extremely complex, you can, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? I mean, now we're in the era of artificial intelligence. I mean, it's
right,
always been there, but now it's getting more and more enhanced. So you can just like plug
right,
that in, upload the PDF. Okay, please explain to me in simplest terms possible, what does this mean?
exactly.
Fascinating.
Wow, yeah,
Fascinating. So I'm intrigued, like how, just out of curiosity, like when you're a ghostwriter, what deals are like really like structured when it comes to it? Like, I mean, do you get paid like a once-off fee, or is it like royalty based? How does it
yeah.
work?
So, like I said, that's a field I would like to be in more. I would love to take, there are certain people I have my eye on that I would love to tell their stories. But what I've done is mostly, I've done book doctoring, which is a form of ghostwriting, and you're taking that person's story and you're completely rewriting it, but you keep their voice. Um, and so for that, how I've been paid is I'm being paid not through royalties, but It's just that one-time fee for working on that
Okay.
particular project. And then in terms of writing articles where I am truly a ghostwriter, I just do the interview and then I write the article. That is, again, a one-time fee, a flat fee. And it depends on how you get paid. It depends on if you're working directly with the client or if you're working through a publisher or through a magazine or something to that effect. So it depends on which entity, and they have different pay scales as well. Not everybody pays the same. But for the book, now I work with quite a few ghostwriters, and you'd be shocked to know some of the big stars that have these books out, and they did not write this book themselves, right? Everybody cannot be a writer. Just and it's shocking to anyway. It's fun, not just shocking, but it's fun to now know a lot of the ghostwriters who's really the voice behind some of these big time authors. And so how that happens is it depends on the publisher and the artist that they're working with. But sometimes that the ghostwriter's name is like a little, they'll have the big name and then they'll have written with so-and-so. So you get publishing credit always, right? You're always, even if your name is nowhere on there, in the copywriting, it's still shown who is the ghostwriter. And so for those projects, they should be royalty based. A lot of times those ghostwriters, they can either get a huge flat fee, or they can it depends on their contract, or they would also get a small part of the royalties. But what's really big, one ghostwriter I know in particular, every time her client gets on the New York Times best-selling list, that goes to, she is now noted as a New York Times best-selling author because of those ghostwritten books. Even though you wouldn't, her name is not the one that's in stars and lights and all that, but she gets that credit.
Yeah. I guess as the years have unfolded, if we go back, before social media or this digital age, it was hard for you as a ghostwriter or the guy or girl behind the scenes to actually, get exposure. There was no platform. So now more behind the scenes, people are coming to light now because now you empowered, create your social media handle and so on. And that's how you're actually marketing that, hey, I'm an independent ghostwriter. Most probably are independent. And this way you can check me out or check out my work. Right. I mean, there's a lot of similarities to the music industry as well. Now you get your master shares, you get your publishing shares if you're a ghost songwriter. So a lot of similarities going on there. So with regards, So I mean, with regards to your first book that you published, which one was that? Before we get to a fifth of the story.
Yeah, so I published, one was called, nobody even knows about this book. I mean, we did an in-house publication with the church and people who took this particular program. It was called Overflow, and I wrote it with a pastor's wife. Her name is Dana Peterman. That was a great experience, and I hope maybe one day that book will have more exposure. We'll take it and get it traditionally published, but who knows? It was a good experience. The book that actually was published and you could purchase it on Amazon and all of that, it was called God's Little Black Dress for Women: How to Put on the Full Armor of God Without Losing Your Femininity. It's a great learning experience because I had the intention of wanting that book to be traditionally published. What I didn't know that is if I self-published it myself first, I would be up against unbelievable odds. The only reason I jumped the gun and I self-published it is because I wanted to raise money for a missionary family. They were going to Mongolia, and I wanted to use the proceeds from the book to help do that. And it did. It served its purpose. And then weeks later, I took that whole idea, that book and everything, and I presented it and pitched it to agents and publishers. And there was one agency that was really interested in my idea and loved it. Said the writing was good, the concept was great, the proposal was wonderful, the idea for follow-up books was great. But then they said, they looked at my sales. I didn't even know that would hurt me. So I said, well, I sold enough to raise money for this. They said, no, for us, you would have to have shown that this book had sold in the thousands, and you needed to have a good ranking on Amazon. They were looking at my social media platform. I had no presence whatsoever. I had a website. I had some social media, but it was negligible. So I learned backward that I really had to build my platform. If I wanted to be taken seriously, then I really had to grow that platform in an organic way. And I worked on it for several years, and pleased to say that it's so much more engaging and better. And all the while, I also worked on my craft. And so that was about 8 years ago. And I'm really grateful that last year I was offered a contract and representation through that same agency that said no.
Look at that. It's sad in a way, and it's happening in the creative space from A to Z. Now, whether it be publishers, whether it be record labels, they want to see your social media presence. Do you have a following? It's no more about the product or how talented am I or how skillful I am in actually writing. Show me your social media presence. Show me your following, because we're just going to create the product. We're going to pay for the expenses. We're going to put out to market, but it's still your responsibility to market to your audience. We're not going to do any marketing, and that's the era we're living in, and that's how they get it sold. But we're going to give you the advance, and that's what us as creators actually fall for, a good 60-70% of the time. The numbers declining as we continue to educate creators out there. So it's pros and cons, right now in the industry.
Yeah.
Really. So with God's little black dress, I love the line that you use, women want to be spiritually stylish. Like, I love that. I love that,
Yeah.
So what inspired the name of the book?
Well, it was a spin on the armor. If you're a Christ follower, or if you just know anything about the Bible, you'll know that in Ephesians, there's a lot of description about what it means to wear the armor of God. It talks about, the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the belt of truth, the shoes of the gospel, the sword of the Spirit. And to me, I just couldn't get with that. I was like, that doesn't sound like what I would be into. And what I did was I created an analogy for the armor in a way that women could more identify with. And that's a little black dress. And that concept has been around for years, but who really made it a big deal was Coco Chanel. And I love fashion. My girls, I have all girls. I have one stepson, but I have all girls. And when I would talk to them about how to be a Christ follower or how to just prepare for this world, I could always use fashion and all that. And one thing that's iconic about the little black dress is across cultures, across ethnicities, women know what that little black dress is about. I don't care if you're going to Tokyo, you're going to Africa, you're going to London, New York, wherever. Women understand the concept of the little black dress. And so that was my jump off point. And really, I wrote that book. It was really for my girls. And it was really just explaining to them how to prepare for this world. And I used all kinds of fashion icons. Every chapter starts out with a quote from a famous designer or someone who is iconic in the fashion industry. And then we take it from there.
So you modernize religion in a way.
Yeah, I wanted to make it right. You know what? I love that you said that, because I would talk to the girls about, different parts of the Bible, and they're like, oh, they're so old timey. How does it apply to me today? And I'm like, it still does. So
Yeah,
let me just tell you how. Yeah.
yeah. No, that's cool. We need more of that to be more adaptable, to the younger generations.
Yeah. It's
You
true.
know, make it cool. Make religion cool.
Yeah.
Like, so, so, like, from your personal opinion, do you see a difference, out of curiosity, once again, between religion and spirituality?
Yeah, religion can be very divisive, right? So I people will say, "Oh, you're religious." And I said, "No, I have a relationship with God. I don't want to consider myself, excuse me, religious because there are lots of negative connotations with religion. It kind of pigeonholes you
Yeah,
and it makes
yeah,
you're like a person who's following all of these rules and regulations, right? And a lot of times religion concentrates so much on why we're different, and I prefer a relationship with God because it opens my heart to seeing how many things we have in common and how to build, bridges instead of walls. And then spirituality is usually, I hear people say that a lot, but it's usually some kind of out there awareness about, the fact that there is a God, and you know, it's very undefined. Spirituality is just very different. It just seems to be different from one person to the next.
yeah. It's like with spirituality, there's no middleman. It's direct relationship between you and
Yeah.
God. It's like going
Yeah.
directly to the source. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
I, I mean, I grew up a Catholic, um, and as I progressed, my journey with the church, I also saw that, what, there were things that just didn't make sense to me.
Hmm.
Maybe it was, part of my awakening. And I
Hmm.
didn't understand that if we all praying, to one God, one source, and then I saw how Christianity was so split, you
Hmm.
know. It's like
Yeah.
there's Jesus, and okay, I got this relationship with Jesus, but then I see so many people, so many churches praying to Jesus, but in a different way. And
Yeah.
then they would dispute with each other. If we had
Yeah.
like five different types of Christians sitting in the room, they will dispute with each other, fight with each other. Some will not even talk to each other again because
Yeah.
I'm doing it this way, you doing it that way. And that didn't make sense to me. It really
Yeah.
didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I decided for myself, okay, now I'm going to go down a spiritual journey. I'm going to keep my
Okay.
relationship with God. I'm going to keep my relationship with Jesus. But
Yeah.
I'm just going to move the church to the side a bit and let me
Yeah.
form that direct relationship.
Yeah.
So,
I love that you said that, though. That there is a lot of like I said with religion, there is a lot of divisiveness between people who are supposed to be Christians and supposed to be following one God. If you believe in the Holy Trinity, the God the Father and the Holy Spirit, God the Son, the Father, um, and our Holy Spirit. But when we concentrate on all the differences and we get into who's right and who's wrong, then we start to lose that. So I totally understand that.
yeah. And we honestly forget what it means to be human, you know,
Right.
that we're all human,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
that guy said so and that guy said so. But it's
Hmm.
just how, I mean, now, our parents, grandparents, they live by set standards and rules and laws.
Hmm.
Now people are just more awakened, and
Hmm.
the questions are starting to get asked. Okay, if the priest, for example, is telling me, okay, I need to do this, now it's like, okay, but why? Explain to
Right.
me.
Yeah.
It
Right.
needs to make sense.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is also quite cool.
Hmm. Yeah.
um, so one of, okay, my opinion again, you made this transition now from like God with the black dress, spirituality, religion to action, crime, thriller.
Hmm.
So how did that happen? A fifth of the story, how did that come about? What inspired that for you?
Yeah. And actually, I've also done a compilation. Like I have a blog and I have devotional writers. We write weekly encouragement, and there are like 10 of, usually about 10 of us. And before a fifth of the story came out, we had a book come out called Focus. How to Keep Jesus in the Picture, that came out in 2023. We also released another book. It's called Mountains Moved, 45 Devotions on Bold Faith. It came out last year. So additionally, my first thriller came out last year, and that came about through my working with my mentor. I have a mentor I'm really so blessed to have. His name is Cecil Murphy, and he is a ghost. He made his name as a very famous ghostwriter. Some of his books that he wrote became movies, and so on. So he incredibly gifted. And he asked me when he was referred to me. He was actually referred to me through someone who wanted to pick up one of my books and thought I needed someone who was a mentor. And so he was like, just let me see all the things that you have and tell me more about yourself. And as I did that, he was like, why aren't you not writing what you love and what you would probably be really good at? Because he found out what my husband did at the time. My husband, he worked in the intelligence agency for the military, and I have like this in-house expert that I could glean from. And I was like, you think I could do that? And I wrote a book on the fly in 10 months. And every day I would report back to my mentor and all of that. And that's how a fifth of the story came about. I never thought I could write something like that. I'm like, really? I could write what I love? and so that's how that book came about.
And here's this fine line against between fiction and non-fiction, right? Because, like, okay, I'm a fan of crime action thriller as well. James Patterson, comes to mind like first. Like, I mean, wow, his books just take you into, different worlds. But then when I read the books, I'm like, honestly speaking, I feel like these things do happen in the world.
Yes.
There's that fine line again. The publisher will go to market and be like, yeah, this is fiction, but how fiction is it? Because these things do happen, So, I mean, do you agree with that? I mean, is the book, or is now, your journey as an action crime thriller author, do you feel also like, okay, as you said, you got all this intel, like, this is stuff really happening in the world?
Yeah, the book that I wrote is terrifying because there are things that I took, things that were declassified. You have a lot of people don't realize that we have access to a lot of declassified files, and you can build stories off of that. You're like, I cannot believe the crazy stuff that happens. So some of the incidents that I took were incidents that happened, and I just stripped the identity of people. I changed the time and place, the country, that kind of stuff. And there were like little vignettes of real things that happened, and I just put it together to create a story. But what is terrifying is it's based on, well, first of all, it's a story about friendship, about loyalty, that kind of thing, about the men and women who really put their lives on the line to ensure that we do have the kind of freedom that we have here in the United States and the rest of the world, to be honest. But it is also telling a story about the infiltration of the intelligence agencies of people who mean the U.S. no good. They want to be divisive. They have hidden agendas. And some of these are extremist. And so, unfortunately, we've seen that extremists have infiltrated some of our highest intelligence agencies. And that is a fact. I mean, that's something my book is about 300 pages long, but I have probably about 700 pages of the research I did for that book. It's thoroughly researched.
Oh.
And other than there's an extremist group that's named in there called the White Adamites. It's a fictitious extremist group, but the other groups that I name in there are actual groups that are alive and well here in the United States. And and a lot of them are one of the hugest threats to our safety. We concentrate a lot on outsiders coming in and doing us harm, but a lot of our issues are inside. And a lot of them
Yeah,
are white
yeah.
supremacists. White supremacy is a big problem here in the United States.
Wow. So being an author, like, releasing this sort of material, doing the research that you do, like, do you ever like fear like of these groups, that they will connect the dots and, she's telling the world about what's really going on, even though it's labeled as fiction, the truth in the book is actually realistic. Do you like
That
live in
would
those
be
empty spots?
that would be a dream come true, because then it would help bring more awareness. Because a lot of times people don't want to hear, a lot of times they don't want to hear hard things, right? We shy away from things like child sex
Yeah,
trafficking. It's happening, it's horrible, there should be
it's
more done
real.
about it, but
Yeah.
people, they just shy away. Oh, it's ugly, it doesn't impact me directly, I don't want to know about it. And it's the same with white supremacy. It's like people don't want to hear about it, they don't want to believe it's real, even though it's happening in real time. And it's not just a threat to Black and brown people, it's a threat to democracy. It's a threat against actually religious freedom.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. And that's one of the reasons, before we came onto the podcast, I mentioned Creating Team Human, which is another podcast I co-host. That's like the problems we are trying to resolve, is to bring awareness to the problems of the world, problems in society that are there, and to get the
Wow.
message through to people to stop ignoring it and stop pretending that, it doesn't exist.
Right.
Like, people are
Yeah.
so asleep to the reality of the world,
Yes.
and sooner or later it's going to catch up to you, because these things will affect you down the
Yeah.
line.
Right.
Stop being distracted, by cheap entertainment,
Yes.
about fake news and watching mainstream media,
Hmm.
like, stop it, you know.
It's
Like,
true.
the information is there. It's not like it's not there. It's there. You just need to know where it looks. I mean, I watched an interesting video today. Just off topic, but we'll get back to the book. About the difference between freedom and liberty. You
Right.
know, it like has two differentiations. Liberty
Mhm.
as is like, okay, and the video went into why they call the Statue of Liberty the Statue of Liberty, because
Mhm.
liberty means, as the video unfolds, like, if I want to take my father's car, I need to ask him permission.
Mhm.
That's liberty. Freedom is I can just go and take the car.
Oh,
So what
wow.
world are we really living in? It's
Wow.
really just understanding, and tapping into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, your book for me is like nonfiction. It's happening in the world. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Mhm.
It's nonfiction. So with your
Yeah.
character development, like Brock, like,
Mhm.
how did that start? Like, your character development, where did it come from? What
Yeah.
inspired it? The Brock like just pop up in the end. Or maybe you're a WWE fan, Brock Lesnar.
Yeah. So Brock is he's representative of a bunch of different men in my life. I mean, I feel like he's just he's a mix up of maybe my husband, my father, even my mentor. Um, and my mentor he's like a pastor. He's an older guy, but he's so open-minded and so young at heart. And then, my husband, he is a man's man. He was trained in all kinds of tactical uh, mixed martial arts. I have a black belt in Taekwondo. I could never take my husband down. Like, yeah, I don't. He has such a good understanding of all types of different mixed martial arts. It's just I can't ever get him. And then of course he works so long in the intel agency. He knows so much, and he's been deployed so much. He has such a great sense of what's happening in the world, about culture, about people, that understanding. And my father was a really well-read person. He was a self-starter. He owned his own construction company, and he was a man's man. He was like the alpha male in his friend group. And so I took all of those guys and I put them into one person who is Brock. Yeah.
And you just like what the name like Brock just like come to mind, or
Well,
I
no,
guess with
yeah,
Brock it's like strong,
it's strong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brock is, I had to do a lot of research on that because originally that wasn't his name. And even my editor, my mentor was like, the name that you have originally started out with Tim. They were like, it just doesn't sound like he doesn't sound like a Tim. He needs a name that's more unique and strong. And so I went and I did my research. Brock, his family's lineage is actually Irish. And so I just needed a strong Irish kind of name. And Brock rhymes with rock. I'm like, yeah, that's the name.
Yeah, I mean, the cover of the book, he looks quite buffy, like this guy can take on the world.
Yes. Yeah. I absolutely love what the cover artist did with the book. The publisher did an incredible job in choosing a cover. Well, actually, they gave me several mock-ups, and that was the one I loved. And lots of times people don't know this, but in traditional publishing, you as an author, you don't get to just choose your book cover. You have a say in it, but the marketing team is the one that has the last word. So I'm grateful that it was a cover. They chose a cover I love that really encompassed the book. It had a strong picture of this alpha male on the front. It's a bad guy. He's got his special agent's badge on there. You've got the White House in the background. You got flames and fire, and it looks like mayhem and chaos. And that's a lot of what the book is about.
Yeah. So do the red flags between you and the publisher, does it annoy you at times?
The what?
Your relationship, like the red flags with the publisher. Like as you said, they have the final say. Like, I mean, okay, the cover art was actually something you wanted, but is there any like other examples where you're like, no, I don't want that, and now you're making the final decision and I'm not happy with it?
Yeah. I have to say, because of my work with a mentor, and also because I wrote this book as a male, so my protagonist is a guy. His friends. It's mostly I'm writing about a lot of men, and I'm not a guy, and I don't want to be one, and so I needed to get the input from other men in terms of is this written properly from a male perspective. And then I also hired an editor myself before I sent in my final book to the editor. So because of that, it was really clean. So it went back. I think it went back twice. I had to go back twice with the main editor and then a proofreader. And then after that, you don't see the book. Once it goes to the proofreader, you don't see it again. When I got it back, I had to say I was pleased. There were some things where I'm like, well, I don't know if I like that tweak right there, the rewording or whatever. I don't like it, but it was I felt that it was wonderful. I could not find any errors in that book in terms of grammar, typos, anything like that. And that book went on to become a finalist for something called the Christie Awards. And I was one of 3 finalists for debut novel. And the Christie Awards it's like the Oscars for Christian fiction. And it was such a big honor just to be a finalist for my debut thriller. Unfortunately, I didn't win the spot, but it opened doors for me. And that book is now up for a couple of other different awards. I have to see how it goes. But it gave me faith in the publisher that even the little tweaks they did, they worked out in my favor. So I have to say my experience with the publisher has been really good.
Yeah. That's so inspiring, it reminds me of like singing competitions, right? Like you'll get 100 people who will apply for it, and then they announce a winner and 99 people just give up on their dream, give up on their career. This is the end of the world.
Right.
But now listening to you, you are a finalist, you never win, but it opened up I quote, so many doors.
Yeah, it opened up a lot of doors, even for that the organization that sponsors that award. I was asked to come back to do this reader writer event, which is really big and helps with your sales. So this year I'm going to get to work with that organization and go to one of those events with my books, and that will open up more doors. So you have to stay positive, even if you don't win. Sometimes it's just good to be invited to the party because you never know who you can meet at the party.
Exactly. The importance of networking, let one of your goals be to, okay, I want to win, but let me see who else I can meet along the way, along the journey. Enjoy the process. Stop worrying about the results. Focus on the process, right?
Yeah.
That's critically so important. Focus on that. Whatever the result is, just make sure you enjoy the process and you meet a lot of cool people along the way. You never know what that could lead you. I mean, we all got the same story to say, we never win it all, but the goal wasn't to win it all. It was to enjoy the process, love what I do, learn from my mistakes, understand that I need to embrace failure. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And next step, next goal, next objective.
Yeah. Which is hard. When you're competitive, it's hard to not win. Yeah. But you're right. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Networking is so important. That is probably one of the biggest things that helps an author in their career is to network properly. Don't burn bridges. Just continue to build bridges, not walls. And be careful how you treat people, how you speak to people. Always be kind and polite.
Yeah. I mean, you were labeled or are labeled a critically acclaimed author. So, I mean, once the critics, start to give you acknowledgement, when you are criticized, respond in kindness. That's cool. That's your view of me. That's not my view of me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to take it. There's something I can learn from it. Cool. I'm going to learn from it. Because maybe you also directing me where I am going wrong. It just depends on my own personal evaluation.
Yes,
so,
true.
Fourth of the story. So you have a sequel lined up for it.
Yes, it's already written.
To be continued.
Oh yeah, it's already written. The sequel. It's the working title is By the Fire of Zeal, and it actually picks up one of the secondary characters in the fifth of the story. Her name is Patricia Pang or Patty Pang, and it tells her story as an FBI agent. And it's a domestic suspense with romantic threads sewn throughout the book. And I'm working on another book in the series. I don't know what's going to happen. I just feel like I'm supposed to write this story, and it's about Margot Lipset. She's a mother of Patricia Pang. She is a senator's wife who is slated to perhaps go to the White House, and it tells her story. And it tells her story as an immigrant. She's a Jamaican immigrant. It also talks about the sex trafficking with regards to children. It's a hard, difficult story to write, but I'm doing it in a way that's very tasteful, where maybe people who wouldn't want to know anything about sex trafficking, they love a great story. And it is an action-packed story about Mrs. Lipset's backstory. And so we'll see what happens with that. The working title for that book is called Every Good Story Ends Well.
That's a good title. That's a good title. I love how you have, named your books and certain lines that you use. It's really intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, wow, wow, this sounds awesome. This sounds exciting. Yeah, I need to read this. I should learn more about this. No, that's quite cool. So, besides Brock, you see yourself in the future being diverse, with your action thrillers, using different characters, different storylines, different storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you brought that out about being diverse. There's a diverse lineup of characters. I feel like we thrive in diversity because when we thrive in diversity, it creates unity. And so my first book, it's really about three white guys, right? And people are like, well, what do you know about that? Well, I'm a mixed race person. So my grandfather was a white guy. My father's mother was white. And our family is incredibly diverse. I have no problems writing from that perspective. And I also make sure that I am sensitive. I get input from people who don't look like me, who are the different sex than me, to make sure that I am writing accurately. And even in that book, you still had Patricia Pang. She is married to Andrew Pang. He's white, she's Black. Um, and it goes on and on in terms of the diverse characters. In the other books, it's the same thing. Very diverse characters. And I dig really deep when it comes to diversity. I don't claim to or pretend to know everything about every single different ethnicity. So I really do my research. I ask for input, even in terms of people think that diversity is just about race and all of that. It's also about disability. In the book, the second book that I wrote that's being shopped now through my agent, that for most of that book, my main character is blind. So I had to get input from someone who is disabled and feels like that is accurate how I'm writing, writing from the perspective of someone who's visually challenged.
Wow. That's cool that you put so much time and research into your work. You're not just out there just to push out material, not knowing the full facts, having the full facts.
Mm-hmm.
And like, to authors out there who are listening, when you do listen to this, like, take your time with your work. Make sure that the content you're actually going to put out, makes sense. You've done extensive research on it, just like yourself. You've interviewed people, especially with your character development, to the authors, like, starting out, like, when you're developing your character, do research based on that character with people who fit, like what you've done, husband, father, brought it all together. You knew their personalities.
Right.
So that is quite cool. So with regards to your books, anything else you want to share, like, on that part?
Yeah, I am also working on a line of romantic suspense novels that I'm really excited about. And I have sketched out 4 proposals for 4 different books, and I am having a ball doing that. I can't wait to hear back, to find out where that can be placed and pitched. But I have a strong feeling of where it can go. And so I've built like this imaginary town in Arizona where I used to live, and this whole set of characters I can't wait to play with and get to know even more. So that's one thing that I'm working on. And then for this year, I'll also be producing another devotional. I plan to do that for as long as I live. I'm praying that that's something I get to do every single year. Work with a group of writers to produce a book of encouragement for people to get through a hard world. It's a fun world. Lots of good things still happen, but it's hard, and we need encouragement. I love that. I love coming alongside people and encouraging them. So those are all the things to come.
I guess after 2020, the world does need more encouragement than ever before.
Yes.
At least in my era of being alive.
Mm-hmm.
But romance, love stories, murder, it's still a huge seller, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge seller. And once again, it's not fiction. These things, my opinion, happens in the world.
Yes.
It happens. Yeah. Like, you get intrigued by it. It reminds me of a James Patterson book called Guilty Wives. Like, wow, masterpiece.
Wow,
yeah.
He's one of my favorite. Yeah, James Patterson. Oh my gosh, he's really done it well. Mm-hmm.
But there's times I wonder, like, does the guy actually exist? Like, okay, I'm sure. Okay, I haven't, like, looked on YouTube, to check where he's done it. I haven't gone that far. Just be honest about that. I'm thinking, like, and there's so much books. And I'm thinking to myself, like, does this guy sleep? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like if I had to have him on the podcast, I'd be like, dude, do you sleep?
Yeah.
Are you from another world, another
And
dimension?
now he's doing so many projects with other authors. I'm like, hey James, if you need help with something, I got you. I can co-write something.
Yeah, but I mean, as we move towards conclusion, let's touch on your podcast as well, which is labeled so cool. I actually got it written down, murder, mastery, and mayhem laced with morality.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's actually called Murder, Mystery, and Mayhem Laced with Morality. Yeah.
Mystery. Sorry, correct myself. Mystery,
Yeah.
not mastery. Yeah. So, I
Yeah.
mean, what's that podcast about? Have you ever thought about like reaching out to James Patterson? Yo, join me on the podcast.
Hey, that's a great idea. Who knows? Maybe one day he'll be on the podcast. It would be absolutely wonderful. Yeah, so that podcast is geared toward the genre: suspense, thriller, true crime, mystery, cozy mysteries, mostly that genre. I occasionally have authors who write outside of that genre. And if I do, then we talk about the craft, we talk about the journey to publication, because everybody wants to know, like, how did you get doors to open? How do I grow my platform? How do I sell more books? So that's always going to work. But in terms of the podcast, we're going on 4 years, and it's listened to in about 41 countries at the time of this recording. We have a growing listenership, which is really exciting. I've moved from just audio to audio and visual. And so we have video component for platforms that can have video. We're there. And it began from me like begging people to come on the podcast, going to conferences, getting people to sign up. And now it has gotten the attention of lots of book publicists. And now I don't have to go out and beg people to be on it.
Yeah,
I am really fortunate where I have publicists that come and they ask me to interview their clients, and it's exciting when you have big names. I'm like, oh, must be nice. They have their own, publicists. They arrange everything. I'm like, oh, it must be fun. But that is exciting because it shows that it's a really credible source. We have great guests. And people can tell I really love them. I mean, I just love getting to know other authors and other experts. Occasionally we have experts, people who are detectives or in intel or in the forensics line. So it's a lot of fun, and it's a great way for people to learn about authors they love, about the craft, lots of behind the scenes secrets, lots of things that people can pick up, ways that they can get doors open for them. So it's a gold mine, and I always come away from it learning something, and I love that as well.
Yeah, no, that is quite awesome, and well done on how the podcast is actually established over the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
When you were talking about like, all these big names that come on, now you know how I feel, when someone like you comes on, I'm like, yeah, there's someone huge. Yeah. Like each week is just, so diverse, you have like up and comers, authors just starting off, but it's awesome, when you get like high profile figures, coming on.
Mm-hmm.
With regards to like your nonprofit work, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so the proceeds for each of my devotion books, it's something that at this point, I haven't been concerned about traditionally publishing it. And it's actually helped me in learning how to do production editing. And that's one of the things that I do. That is all a self in-house thing that I do. And all the profits are going to nonprofits that I work with. I donate my time once a week to a school in Guatemala, and this school is located in a landfill. You cannot believe it until you see it, until you're there. And I've been to Guatemala many times. And so this school is called Light for the Future. The organization is called Light for the Future. And I teach art to them once a week, to middle and high school students. And so all of our royalties are going to help that school and that particular program, because they're concentrated in marginalized families in that community. So I work with them. I also work with a community called the 540 Writers Community. It's a free online resource. They meet weekly. I am on the board for that. And it is a Christian organization, but they're open to they're open to everyone. And what they do is they give practical guidance and information that is free, all forever free, to all of the attendees, all of the people who have joined. There's no cost to join. You just have to do a simple sign up process. So that's one. And then 540 is also connected to something called CWI, and it's also connected to a conference as well. Okay, so there's a lot of parts with that, but 540 is a nonprofit, and there's another nonprofit called Submersion 14. They also do work in Guatemala as well. So those are the 3 nonprofits that I'm involved in.
Nice. Well done. Well done. And thank you, for what you do.
Yeah.
Honestly, thank you. Yeah. I mean, okay, so before I on to one of my last questions, so on you have a website, so people can find out more about these nonprofits on your website.
Yes. Yeah. So on my website's really easy. It's my name. It's www.drdr Katherine Katherine Hayes Hayes.com. That's it. And there you see all the things. You can see some of the places. I need to update it to put all the places I write for, but you'll see the other places I write for. You'll see the nonprofits I work with, and the fact that all the proceeds go to those organizations to help them. And then you'll also see you can listen to the podcast right from my website, or you can go to, Spotify, Apple, wherever podcasts are listened to. And then you can also sign up to connect with us. I send out a monthly newsletter. I don't bombard anybody. I also highlight books that I've read and I like to support other authors in my newsletter. I like to give free information, tell people what I'm up to, and connect with people. And then there's weekly encouragement for men and women. I have something called Dressing in God's Love blog, and also the Man Cave. So we have men that write men. These are devotions by men for men. And then we also have something that's for kind of everybody, Dressing in God's Love. It's a spin-off of the book, God's Little Black Dress.
Okay. Now this leads me back to what I said at the start of the show. How do you manage it all? How?
Yeah.
Do you sleep?
Yeah. Well, this is something I really don't recommend. I go to sleep late and I wake up early, which I don't think is a good idea. And I'm going to work on that. Some of the things that I realize you can do it all, but you won't last that way. So I realized working with a team of bloggers was better for me. So I don't write the devotions every single week. I work with a team of people who write work weekly encouragement. I plan ahead. So my calendar for the blog is planned a year ahead of time. So that whole schedule is built 1 year out, right? So everybody knows what they're writing for the whole year, what week you have, all of that. I have monthly meetings, so it's not all on me. I also have an assistant that helps me with social media. I create all the content. That person creates graphics and sends it out. I don't have to think about it. Could I do it? Yes. In a pinch, have I had to? Yes. It's important to know how to do all of that yourself if you have to in a bind. And I also have someone that has also worked with me on what used to be Twitter is X. So they really helped me in my outreach on that platform. So number one, don't do it yourself. Come alongside other people. I belong to a couple of different writers groups, critique groups, for encouragement. There's one I have just for leadership encouragement I work with. There are other ones where I'm the one who's the mentor, and I think it really helps me to give back to other people. It helps fill me up. And I also believe in planners. I live by planners. I plan. I have to-do lists. I love to-do lists. I like to check off my boxes. So it's a lot of planning. I also have a family calendar where my family also knows, okay, mom is traveling to a conference here. She has a podcast today, so we got to make sure we're quiet, and she's going to be locked in her office for hours. Or mom has a deadline, she's got to make this deadline by such and such a time. So they understand that sometimes when we travel, not sometimes, all the time, I bring my laptop with me. I'll have to work most of the time when I travel. I love it because I absolutely love being able to work from home. The travel I do is for conferences and, like I said, speaking engagements, but I love the flexibility of that. So I don't mind ever bringing my laptop on a vacation.
So you never have the need to just disconnect from the world.
I do. I try to take some sort of sabbatical, at least once a week or something to that effect. But I don't ever completely disconnect.
Yeah. Now, I was just, curious about that because, some creators out there state, that when you're doing nothing, that's when your best creativity actually comes about. Sometimes
Okay.
people are just
that.
all over the show and consumed by so much going on that you're not bringing out your best.
Yeah, that's true. You do need time to Yeah. I like that you said that. You do need time to reset. And so I believe in exercise. I exercise. I walk the dogs. It's good to get outside and be in nature. So that's something that I use as a reset. I cycle and I love to go out and you're right. Your ideas are just forming. You can see someone who looks weird and you're like, oh, that would be a great character for a book. And something will happen. You're like, oh, something will happen with my dog. And I'm like, I'm going to put a dog in my next book. So yeah, there are times where you absolutely do need to fill yourself back up. You can't be always on. When I say I don't separate, is that I know that I need to connect with clients and I have obligations online and all of that. But you do need time, self-care. That self-care is really important.
Yeah. I recall 2 weeks ago, I told the co-host on Talking Back to Suicide, there's no point that I'm out here or we are out here to inspire people, motivate people, educate people, but our lives is like, and she just burst out laughing. That makes so much sense. Here I am, I'm on the podcast, I'm smiling, I'm laughing, but behind the scenes is like, So, and this was also with regards to sleep, because, I'm in South Africa. So, of course, now, I'm in different, time zones. And it's not like, okay, I'm going to sleep at, say, 11 p.m. here in South Africa. And, okay, I'm only going to start tomorrow evening. I also got to wake up in the morning. I got my own independent record label, also got a production team. And, they are now up to the day out and about, okay, we need to get this done and that done. And then we had a doctor that came onto the podcast as well. And this guy, he was so cool, instead of OG, I call him OC. So, with his two names, together. And he was like, you have to sleep, 8 hours a night. You have to sleep 8 hours a night. And I'm just chilling. And I'm like, sometimes it's not possible. I do my best. I'm not disagreeing with you. I do my best, but at times, it's so difficult. So, since this new year started, I've attempted, okay, push 8 hours. I'm going to sleep at 11. Let's see if I can adjust the schedule in the morning to say, okay, get up at 7, 8. So at least I'm done. And it's been having its benefits. Yes.
Yeah.
So
he's definitely right. Yeah, he's right. We do need more sleep. Yeah, goodness. Like earlier I said, I go to bed too late and wake up too early. That's not don't do that. But I do take my breaks. Like I'll snooze in my husband bought me a massage chair. It was just absolutely one of the best gifts ever. I go in there and I chill and I try to do nothing, which is fun. And I play hard and I work hard. Like I love to have fun. I love to entertain. I love to cook and to have friends and family over. It's a huge part of my life. And I love traveling. So those
Yeah,
things really fill me up and help me reset and get restored, so that it's really important to take care of yourself. And there are lots of self-care things that I do. I really work on taking care of my health, my body, it's really important for me to be a part of a spiritual community that helps feed me too. Also, attending church services for me, worship is important for me. Music is I can't imagine life without music. I am always playing music. In my house, you come to my house, music is always playing. Music is a huge, huge part of my life. And I'm glad my husband's the same way.
yeah, yeah,
I play the
100.
piano too and I sing. So I
Wow.
yeah, love music. Yeah.
I think you need to also look into releasing your own track as well. Why not? Why not add it to the list?
That'd be
You know,
fun.
yeah. I mean, there's authors I've come across that say, look, I love to play a certain instrument, I love to sing, or I love to write music, and I
Mhm.
release music. There's psychologists that I've come across as well that's been on the podcast that do music as a sideline. They release their own music. I'm like, wow, you
Oh my
know.
goodness.
you
Wow.
know and there's so many different types of compositions you can actually release. There's people who just release, like they have like this good beat composition behind them and they're just talking, just
Oh
talking, and
wow.
then it's out on
Yeah.
Spotify, it's on Instagram, on Facebook. They use it within their content and it works for
Fun.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
so look into that. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely look
I
into it.
like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you can play the piano. Not everyone can play the piano. So why not make something over there as well that can, complement what you're doing overall with your career?
Right. Hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, this show has been fulfilling. So, like at the top of it all that you've mentioned throughout the show, like what's the end goal for you and your career and your mandate? What's the end
Hmm.
goal?
So the end goal is for me to um, pour it all out, to be completely used up in the great words of that old theologian, uh, Kanye West. He said that he wanted to, and I'm being facetious, right? He said that he wanted to be. I heard him in an interview, and I thought, I love that. He said, I don't want anything to be left when I die. I want to be completely used up. But what he meant by
Yeah.
it, as he went into the interview, he meant that all his creativity, all the ideas that he had, he didn't want to die feeling like, oh, I should have done this. I wanted to do this. He wanted to pour it all out. And that's how I feel. I want to go for it. Even if I fail, even if I don't reach, I don't produce, this award-winning, Grammy award-winning album of music or something like that. Maybe I go for it. I write a song.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I create the nonprofit that I've dreamed of. I travel here. I leave this legacy for my children. So I just don't want anything to be left. I want it
Yeah.
all to be poured out while I'm here.
Keyword you've used there, legacy.
Legacy.
Create legacy.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, your work will just continue to live on, way after you
Yes,
gone.
that's what I would
Yeah.
love to happen.
100%. That should be the goal, for many creators out there, create legacy.
Hmm.
How many musicians, creatives, I mean, looking back at history, passed away and they passed away broke, right? There was nothing linked to them,
Hmm.
but their name still lives on, you
Right.
know. And I'm talking
Hmm.
about like in the likes of Beethoven, their work still lives on. It's being
Yes.
reworked,
Hmm.
There's classical musical artists that are just reworking the work, they replaying the work, you know. I mean, this dude passed away how long ago?
Exactly.
That's legacy.
Hmm.
So it's moving on. They never do it for the financial gains. You
Right.
know, they did it to make something that's going to be remembered for generations to come. And
Yes.
what you
Yeah.
are inspiring to do. That's what you are doing. I got the same agenda, legacy.
Legacy, yeah. And
Yeah.
to be blessed, to be a blessing. If I come into wealth, if it goes that way, who knows? What if I have books that are picked up and they become blockbuster movies? I'm excited about taking that money and being able to empower other people. I'm not just thinking about how many designer bags and dresses I can buy. I'm thinking about, where can I build a school? Who can I send to college, university that wouldn't be able to afford it? How can I empower other people through my resources?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, well done to you. Honestly, well done to you.
Mhm.
And just all that you're doing, that benefits society. I
Mhm.
mean, just by coming on this podcast alone is already, going to change. Even if it changes one person's lives or
Yeah,
pushes
that
one
would be
person to say,
awesome.
okay, cool, you know what? She did ABC, this was inspirational. I can do it. I can go for it.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. So where can people find you online? Besides the website, which you've already mentioned, and I'm going to put it in the description, but social
Yeah.
media?
Yeah, social media. I am um, I'm heavily involved in Instagram, and I am at author Dr. Katherine. And the Katherine again is spelled Katherine. So I'm there. I'm on X. I'm on Threads a little bit. I have two Facebooks. Yeah, I'm on for author Dr. Katherine for Facebook, and just my regular name, Katherine Hutchinson-Hayes, for Facebook. I so hit me up. I love to connect with listeners. I love to help other people who are aspiring authors, or who are established. I'd love to connect with you. And if you have a book,
Fantastic.
especially a thriller, depends. I want to talk to you. Podcast.
I love how you're so humble. That's awesome. You
Mhm.
know, you're not like on keeping like yourself and all that you've accomplished like on this pedestal of like, what, I'm better. So even if
Oh
you're just
no.
an average listener and you're just starting off, I got no time for you. I love that.
Oh
I love
yeah.
that.
Oh gosh, it's a horrible way to be. I never want to be like that. I want to stay
Yeah,
low. Oh, I love the idea of just staying low. I love
yeah.
that. Hmm.
Because back on legacy, those same people that listen to you, that follow you, that's going to be the people that continues, with your
Hmm.
legacy. It
Right.
doesn't always have to be, family or friends or the people that's within our internal circle. It's also
Right.
the people out there in the world,
Yeah.
you
In
know?
fact, it's more likely to be the people.
Exactly. You know, and I mean, like the generations are becoming so much more advanced. Now you're gonna get like this 10-year-old who's gonna listen to the podcast, whether it be mine, whether it be yours, and she's gonna be like, okay, cool, Catherine, yeah, she was dope. She taught me a lot, and she's just going to continue to embrace your work and take it
That's
into her
right.
teenage years, into adulthood, tell her children about you, and
Yeah.
that's how the name lives on,
Yeah.
right?
That's true.
It's a fascinating world we live in. It's a strange world at times that we live in, but it's also
Mhm.
a fascinating world. There's,
Very.
a lot to be happy about, positive about. Not everyone is bad, you
Yeah.
know, and don't let
Exactly.
the bad people or don't let politics, change who you are. You
Right.
know,
Hmm.
continue
Yeah.
to just push smiles and kindness in the world.
Yeah.
Do your best.
That's it. And that's my tagline is, I want to dress in God's love through the spoken and written word, and pierce. And then the tagline in my podcast is, we pierce through the darkness with the spoken and written word. And I feel like creatives, man, are we needed right now? We are needed to bring light, to bring joy to
Yeah,
people,
yeah,
to give encouragement and upliftment, because there's so much that can take people down, and can, people can be depressed, suicidal. Um, there's, as civilized as our society supposedly is, we're attacked with a lot of things that are very negative. And so it's important for us to keep our eyes on what's positive, on hope, on rebirth, restoration, and renewal.
100%. Couldn't have concluded this show better than that. Thank you. Just on the darkness, what you mentioned there is so important. You have to strive through the darkness,
Yes.
You have to. I mean, it's like, I'm going to quote Isaac Newton here, every action has an opposite and equal reaction, So in order to get to the light and see the light, you have to go to the darkness first. So don't fear the darkness, no matter what you're trying to do with your life, creative or not,
good.
Strive and work through it. It's not an easy process, and we're not here to tell you it's going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it.
Amen. I love that. It will be worth it. Yeah.
It will be worth it. Follow your heart. Listen to your heart,
Yes.
Heart, like listen to your heart, and flowing with your heart is going to create the best abundance ever in your life.
Yeah, that's it. And know that light will always pierce through the darkness. The darkness, even if it's a little bit, you just notice in a dark room, even if you have a little tiny bit of light, how that it makes such a big difference.
Yeah, it does.
Maybe you're that little light that people need right now.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So, Dr. Katherine, thank you for sharing your light on the podcast and with the world and with the listeners. Thank you. It's, much love, much respect.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. This has been fantastic. And thank you for all that you're doing to uplift others and to bring awareness.
Yeah. We just keep doing what we do. I guess, for me personally speaking, I've seen the fraud and the corruption, in the creative space, starting off in the music industry. I've seen nepotism in the industry. I know what goes on behind the scenes and how people out there, especially in the lower and middle class in society, which is where I focus, bulk of my attention.
Yeah.
They don't have the technological means or the finances to actually self-educate themselves. They're so caught up in how stuff, used to be. And it's just raw talent that's getting, abused.
Wow.
And taken advantage of. So I'm there to say, okay, we can fix this and, go into these areas and actually educate those people.
Oh, that's
incredible. It's building its momentum. I'm grateful to have guests such as yourself that comes on, each week, to have this growing network internationally. It's, blessed.
Yes, it is.
Also look at my podcast, starting off in 2021 with the cheapest condenser mic you could get out there, right? Still trying to find myself.
Yeah.
And while trying to find myself, I can see how the world is transitioning at this high speed, with technology. And I'm like, okay, while I'm still trying to find myself and build my career and build my label and build my platform, I also need to inspire people as well, take people with me. Let's go, guys. Let's go. We can do this. We can do this. And I'm sitting in my room and this cheap condenser mic, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast now. That's what I'm going to do. And I started it right there and there. And it's taken me 2021, 2022, 2023, half of 2024 by myself, each and every single week, just showing up and just, educating people, letting them know also what's going on in this at the moment, where you need to be, where your mindset needs to be, especially psychologically. And halfway through 2024 rocks up and boom, 2 agencies reach out to me and they're like, okay, can we promote your podcast? Do you want to interact with our clients as well? I'm like, yeah, sure. Cool. And then I look at, what the metrics is actually, and, there's so many creators that focus so much on vanity metrics, It's like, I need 2,000 likes, to get exposure. And I'm like, nah, just have a good, decent presence, be out there, be consistent. And then I see all these websites that listed, my podcast, and the metrics have nothing whatsoever to do with vanity metrics. Like, is your content fresh? Are you authentic? Are you doing those things? Are you consistent? Consistency plays such a critical role. If you rock up each week with your career or each day with your career, that consistency is going to pay off.
Yes.
To creators out there are feeling like, okay, I'm 3 months in, the book isn't making progress. Like, no one is really into my blogs. Be consistent. You don't know how long it's going to be. Maybe you'll get lucky and it can take you a year. In my case, look, maybe it's going to take you 3 or 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
but be
Yeah.
consistent as a
Yeah.
creative and do good.
Consist-
Do good.
yeah.
Do it from
Do
a good
good,
place.
right? And be consistent. Yeah. That's one of
Yeah.
the, yeah, that relates back to what, a question you asked earlier about how do you do it? How do you do it? It's being consistent. And being consistent is really hard because it's easy to give up when things don't seem to be having results, when you don't feel like you're getting the reaction that you want. Sometimes you look at the metrics like you was talking about on the blog or the podcast, and it's not like you're comparing it to the week before or to other people. And so it's just being consistent and keeping strong and putting out a quality product no matter what.
Yeah.
Mhm.
100%. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, keep doing what you're doing. It's an inspiration to me as well. Like I
Yeah.
get inspired as well, by, all the guests that come on the podcast. So thank you so much. And,
Yeah.
all the best with all of your work that you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. Great conversation.
Yeah, and I'll definitely be in contact, with regards to the other podcasts. And, I'll send you an official invitation. And if you're happy, with what it's going to be about and it fits you and you have, some contribution to add to the topic, then yeah, please join us. Let's change
That
the
would be,
world, one day
yeah,
at a
I
time.
love it.
It's outdated, but it's still a strong selling point. Let's change the world. For Mark.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. It's been a pleasure. I enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this.
Same. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay, bye.
Bye now.